Welcome to the Vanessa Donlan Hypnotherapy Podcast, The Calm Reset. This is a space where we talk about mindset, nervous system regulation, and the powerful ways that we can change our habits and our health and our lives by working with the subconscious mind. Today, I'm joined by Leanne Cooper, a nutritionist, a founder of Well College Global, which is an international nutrition and health coaching college. She's a registered nutritionist. She's passionate about holistic health, as am I, and believes by empowering people with nutrition and health education, it enables people to take their own health into their hands. Now, she's also launched the first bio-optimized holistic health practitioner program. Amazing. So today we're going to unpack it all. We're talking about why GLP-1 medications are becoming so popular and what they actually do in the body. And most importantly, what people need to be aware of if they're considering them or already using them. Leanne will be sharing her expertise from a nutrition and health perspective, and I will also be sharing what I'm seeing in my hypnotherapy practice, because mindset, habits, and the subconscious patterns around food and self regulation still play a huge role in long term results. This is a really important conversation, and it's about supporting the whole person, body, mind, and behavior. So we're going to dive in now. Welcome, Leanne. So
Thank
nice to
you.
see you.
You too, Vanessa. I'm very
Yeah,
excited for this.
yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Obviously, it's every day we're hearing about it on the news, on the television. So let's just dive in because I think people want to know what are they and how do they work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, probably the most common ones that people will hear of is Ozempic and Mounjaro. They are both what they call GLP-1 receptor agonists. To unpack that slightly in a chemical or a clinical sort of way, an agonist is something that stimulates a receptor. So we have receptors in our small intestine called GLP-1 receptors. If you're super techy, you want to know what that means, it's called glucagon-like peptide. And what these medications do is they activate those receptors in our intestinal lining. And what that does is it inhibits a hormone called glucagon. And as a result, because of that inhibition, um, our appetite, our gastric emptying, all of those sorts of things start to slow down. And glucagon also has an effect on our insulin as well. So it has multiple levels of influence over the desire to eat. One thing to keep in mind is that Mounjaro is a GLP-1 as well as a GIP. So GIP is a glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide.
Oof.
Also a hormone made in the small intestine, and has very similar effects. So in some ways, it has quite a strong effect at inhibiting those signals to want to eat. Essentially, if we put it just in a nutshell, what they do is they mimic hormones that we naturally produce that turn off our appetite.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what they're doing. And you'll find that people on these medications will really commonly reflect that they have little to no appetite. They don't want to eat. And some people will not even have a very strong thirst reflex. And
Mm.
they work quite quickly. Um, in terms of what you do with them, they're an injection. At the moment, still, there is a lot of movement around them being an oral medication that has been released or is being tested in certain countries. But at the moment, they're an injection. Don't think of an injection like you might get in your arm. Think of it more like an insulin
Mm.
pen, an EpiPen,
Yeah.
and it either goes into the abdominal area or sometimes even into the thigh, and the medication sits in the fatty layer under the skin, and it actually just really slowly releases over a
Yeah,
week.
right.
Yeah, so you just have it once a week.
Once a week. Oh, okay, that
Yeah,
is interesting.
yeah.
And that's a bit scary that it actually does inhibit the thirst reflex as well, because people
Yeah,
are having to remind themselves that they have to eat, right? They have for nourishment, and they have to hydrate.
absolutely. And look, to be
Mm.
honest, it's not something you see a lot of in the research around the thirst, but it's something I've seen in some of the patients that I've worked with is getting somewhat dehydrated.
Yeah.
So it's something to really keep your eye out for. Most people are aware that it literally stops the chatter. There's like a blind that comes down, and you don't hear that signal when you see food, on television, or, as you're scrolling through Instagram. Those signals or those images and stimuli that stimulate our desire to eat, they don't have, it doesn't happen. So there's a blind that comes down, and you don't have that, oh yeah, I feel like a pizza, or I feel like a whatever it might be, dinner or
Yeah, so it
whatever.
stops the food noise.
It really does. Yeah.
So that's interesting because I find with the weight loss clients that I see that 80% of them, it's emotional eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it stopping that food noise? If it's coming from an emotion rather than the brain, if you know what I mean, like it's a feeling that's making them go for food as it would go for a cigarette or a vape or alcohol. It's just another thing that they're going for to um, calm them down, let's say. Um, I wonder if it stops the emotional eating.
Um, I mean, certainly in a lot of people, they report that they
Mm.
just when they're bored, they don't think, oh, I'm hungry, so I'll have something to eat. So there are multiple ways that our body can signal us to want to eat, not even that it's time to eat. So some people definitely will say, yeah, I just don't hear that noise as much. Other people will still have those triggers. It
Mm.
just depends on the pathway that those triggers are sort of coming through. So varying degrees, really.
Yeah, interesting. Um, and do people have to stay on them forever?
It's such a good question. So what we're talking about today is the use of these in a weight management situation, not so much around the use of them in diabetes, which has a lot of different sort of research. So most of the research around the weight management side, which is typically in relation to chronic illnesses like high blood pressure and so on, it is 1 to 2 years old. And so the studies are looking at people who've been on Mounjaro or Ozempic for 1 to 2 years, but not much longer than that. And in mostly people are saying these are not medications that you would stay on for life.
Yeah.
Ideally, what you would do is in that time where you've got that sort of down regulation of that desire to eat or the appetite, is to make really significant changes to your lifestyle so that when you do come off those and the noise does come back, it's not as impactful on your life, and the control, it has tipped more in your favor rather than the automated sort of control. Um, there are some people who, because 70% of people who go on to one of the medications then comes off, will regain a lot of their weight back.
Yeah.
Um, so some people will come off and they might go back on again because
Yeah,
they've
right.
not been successful in sustaining certain markers, health markers. And so for their health, they might need to go back on it.
Hmm. What's Wegovy? So you're talking about Ozempic and Mounjaro. There's another one called Wegovy. What's the difference with that medication?
Uh, to my knowledge, it's really just brand naming.
Brand. Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Right.
Ozempic
Like,
and Wegovy are sort of the same thing, and
okay.
are GLP-1s, whereas Mounjaro is slightly different because it's GLP-1 plus a GIP.
And is that the one that's used for diabetes, or are they completely different medications that are used for? for diabetics?
They're both used for diabetics.
Oh, they both. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Um, so what do you think people wish they knew before they were going to start? Or if they're on the medication and didn't know, what do you think they need to know?
I think there's a few things. I think they need to know that this is about their health and that they are absolutely doing the right thing to break a cycle. So to
Yeah.
feel good and empowered and to
Mm,
honor your that you are worthy of looking after yourself to make these changes. I think that's such an important thing. I think, like you said, the mindset is so important and it becomes the trickle down effect to then I can do these other things.
mm.
Nutritionally, protein is a massive thing. So really understanding what that actually looks like. What is protein? When should you have it? All those
How
sorts of
much?
things.
How much do they need?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
Because
I'm not,
protein in your diet helps to satiate you, right? So if you're not getting enough protein as well, you're going to feel hungrier quicker.
yeah, oh, look, protein does so many things. You're absolutely right. Protein is the number one satiating nutrient. Carbohydrate
Mm,
would be next, and fat does very little around making you feel full, to
yeah.
believe it or not.
Mm,
But protein also is a carrier molecule for so many things in our body, for our
mm,
iron, for our antibodies, for a whole bunch of hormone, all sorts of things. And so when your protein, for whatever reason, is not available as it should be, there are so many things, layers of things that can affect. And then the next reason to think about protein is that your muscle mass is made of protein. You
mm.
have to have protein to maintain your muscle mass, and your muscle mass is what will drive also the maintenance of your weight later in terms of utilizing energy. So
Yeah.
those proteins so important.
So if people are going on these medications and they're not watching their protein intake, for example, or they're not working out in the gym, lifting
Mm,
weights and things like that, is their weight loss number on the scales, for example, going to be, are they losing more muscle, more than
yes.
fat, quicker?
The, the
Yeah.
research would suggest that that's the case. And there's certainly been questions asked, Mounjaro, are you losing more muscle mass than body fat? And so there's those questions being thrown around. Um, I think it's going to be a very individual situation in terms of how much that person is able to move at any period of time in their weight loss journey, and the type of exercise they're doing, the support they have around them.
Mm,
Because where you start can significantly affect, where you're going to be at any period of time, even in a 6 month, trial of getting to your ideal weight. So I think it's probably more complex than that, but certainly we're seeing people talking about, you're losing muscle mass, and you will even if you don't move and you're eating a normal diet. You have to encourage the use of protein into muscle fibers. You can't
mm.
just eat protein and expect that it will turn up there.
Yeah. And muscle mass helps your metabolism, right? So if
A
you've got
hundred.
more muscle, yeah, you're going to burn fat and burn calories at a faster pace. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. So your
Yeah.
energy expenditure is in many ways dependent on your muscle mass. And so what you want to be seeing ideally is, as the body fat is coming down, so the lipid cells are reducing in size,
Hmm.
so the fatty acids are coming out, they're being used as energy or being lost some way, that the body is then growing the muscle, so that you've gone from body fat here and they're coming closer together in terms of your overall weight.
Yeah,
What you're
yeah.
doing is they call that a free fat mass. The more you have muscle, the more likely you are to be able to burn energy efficiently. It's also good for your blood sugar levels and all sorts of other things. Um, and there's some really interesting things around things like red light and sauna. So typically when you gain additional body fat that perhaps isn't healthful,
Mm.
it's called white adipose tissue. And it can brown or it can go beige and then go to brown adipose tissue. Brown adipose tissue has more what they call mitochondria in it, which is the stuff, the parts of your cells that
Energy.
burn energy. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like the engines of our cells. So
Yeah.
you can take white adipose tissue and under certain conditions, time
Mm.
restricted feeding, red light, sauna, all of those sorts of things, and actually improve the level of mitochondria in them so that they start to become more metabolically active. So, not just about muscle, but also about the type of adipose tissue, because it's not just about being skinny or anything like
Oh,
that.
yeah, no,
It's
no.
about having the right things for your health.
Absolutely. And do you think there's like a realistic pace of weight loss or, for people?
Mm.
Because
I,
I did work with a client that it was before the GLP-1 sort of movement, and she'd had a gastric banding, a physical gastric banding. And she had lost 30 kilos in 3 months. That to me sounds a massive amount of weight to lose. And there was a whole lot of emotional and behavioral stuff that she hadn't caught up with because that is a massive, that's you wouldn't even recognize that person, I wouldn't have thought, in that amount of time. That's massive amount of weight to lose. That to me doesn't sound that healthy.
it's a massive transformation of how you meet the world, really, isn't it? You've
Mm,
gone from a perception of one person to a slightly, well, quite a significantly different perception. And even the way people greet you, there's so many factors in something like a really rapid weight loss. We used to say there was, and there's still some debate around what they call a fat set point, that your body used to
mm.
defend a certain level of body fat. It's a slightly older theory. Some people still stand by that. There doesn't appear to be much evidence around it. And I actually did look up some studies to see if there was anything around it is fast weight loss, which you can see on the GLP-1s. Are there any downsides to that in terms of your metabolism or the regain of weight or anything like that? And to be honest, I couldn't see anything. So I guess the simple answer would be to date, there doesn't appear to be many studies on them, and we don't really know if there's any detrimental effect on in really rapid weight gain physically. But then, like you say, there's the mental and emotional sort of side effects as well. So,
Yeah, right. So the rapid weight loss, that's what we were talking about, right? So
mm.
what side effects have you heard about that people have with these medications? And how can people manage it?
Oh yeah, good question. So probably the most common one would be nausea and just not wanting to eat. That, I mean, that's a
Mm,
side effect.
yeah, yeah.
Um, some people will actually be physically sick for a little while. Digestive complaints, constipation, because it's slowing down the movement of food. It's slowing down your intestinal movements. Mostly it's digestive, headaches, cold-like symptoms. Those would be the most common ones. And I think, and it's something we spoke about earlier, I think a really important thing to do is from the outset have a reminder to eat at regular intervals and drink
Mm,
over the day. So whether you have set your phone or your watch or one of those tomato things, whatever it might be, to every say 3 hours or whatever your eating regime is that perhaps your healthcare professionals put you on, stick to that, have a reminder. And that will help moderate your blood sugar levels so that you're also not sort of, hungry and not knowing it, but then feeling a bit disorientated or dizzy or
mm,
foggy or nauseous or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And if you find that the side effects go beyond that, and you just sense something's not right. Urine color's really dark and just not coming clear. The constipation or even the diarrhea is
Yes.
not, you're not coping. It's really important to go back to your healthcare professional. And
Mm,
on that basis, your healthcare team should be monitoring you with
mm.
biomarker testing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I wanted to just quickly touch on that client that I had seen all those years ago who had had the gastric banding. She had a very interesting thing that she said to me, which I was like pretty blown away with when she said it. She was the one that had lost the 30 kilos within 3 months. So let's say that's 10 kilos a month. So she was rapidly changing. I
Yeah.
didn't know what she looked like before. So I only saw her as this 30-kilo lighter person. And I said to her, what do people say to you when they see you if they haven't seen you? And she said, oh, it's really weird. All the guys at work are looking at me and I hate it because I'm still, these were her words, I'm still a fat person in a skinnier person's body.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
found that really, I thought, wow, there's so much, emotional work that she hasn't done on that identity sort of
Yeah.
work that she really needed to do on herself.
Yeah.
So it really made me very interested in working with weight loss when I, started my hypnotherapy business. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me is a huge part, I think, of all of this that may be a little bit of the puzzle that might not be there yet. To me, it's all part of it.
Yeah.
An important part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something we're really passionate about at the college is like a non-diet based approach to weight management. So, looking at weight management as a health concern rather than as, a physical or,
Mm,
a look or
mm,
trying to, fit into a certain kind of ideal image. And because often when you particularly in a coaching scenario, when you're dealing with people who've come to you that last 10 kilos that they can't quite get rid of, um, they've been chronic dieters. They don't know that. They've been on every diet known to man. They've yo-yoed up and down. And then as they get into perimenopause, the problem gets harder. Then they get into menopause and there's more weight and it's a bugger to shift. And, and then when you start to use a non-diet approach, which looks at things like your relationship to food, listening to your body to hear the triggers of hunger and fullness, which we often override very often. And then
mm,
you keep going back and peeling those layers back. So often it comes down to a sense of being worthy of being nourished and being
absolutely.
worthy, yeah, of being out there in front of the camera with your family and all of those sorts of things. So,
Yeah, yeah.
the whole mindset and overall well-being is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Now, I am interested to hear what the bio-optimized course is that you've got, the practitioner training. Tell us a little bit about that.
Will do. I want to say just one thing. Of the nutrients, well, I just coming back to the things that I wish people would know
New. Yep.
is, you'll hear people say, Eat a healthy diet and cut out your fats and do these sorts of things." That in itself is just nefarious. Like, what does that look like, really?
Mm,
And
mm,
if I'm not eating a healthy diet, because a lot of people already are, they're trying, what does it really look like? And it's just, I think, just simple things like having a colorful, whole food diet. As much as you can, move away from the cupboard, move to the fridge with the full, the fresh
fresh.
foods.
Mm,
Exactly.
nothing in a
Um,
packet.
that's it. So if you can push those to the back of the cupboard, leave them for the rest of the family if they still want them, and you bring that stuff that is front and center for you, that's a
Mm.
great thing. Because other than protein, a big area of concern is vitamin D.
Oh, oh, yep, yep.
And vitamin D is important for your hormones. It's important for your mental health, and it's
Bone
important for
density.
your bones. Exactly. So it's such an important nutrient, and there really is a lot of research around that. There was a really big study, 461,000 people done, and vitamin D came up as the most
Wow.
concerning or compromised nutrient, that there's just
Oh,
it's
how
not
interesting.
happening. Yes, it's
Mm.
a gut connection.
Now, what about fiber? Because fiber,
Yes.
particularly if they're on the medications and there's the dehydration happening and perhaps the
Mm.
bowel movements aren't, it's got to come out somewhere. It needs the bowel needs to be hydrated, all of that stuff. Fiber is,
Mm.
you know, keeps you fuller for longer as well.
Yeah.
All of the, broccoli and all of those vegetables and salad and all that sort of stuff. So I'm thinking a lot of fiber. Is that correct? Would you?
Yep. And again, fiber has all of those benefits, as well as reducing things like colon cancer, depending on the type of fiber. But also, it feeds the healthy bacteria in your
Mm,
tummy. So it's a
mm,
prebiotic, much of it.
mm,
So that's where having your fresh produce, your grains, your nuts and seeds, those sorts of things, getting those into your diet in whatever way it takes. Shakes and smoothies are great because you can put in things like a yeast and fiber and any of your supplements, whatever it might be, and making sure you've got your protein in there. It doesn't have to be a massive one. Lots of colored berries, those sorts of things, and it's just a nutritional, great nutrition hit,
mm.
really.
Booster. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There was something you said, and I thought, oh, I must speak to that, and it's gone out of my head. And just mixing your fiber with water as well. So,
Yeah.
maybe it's
Well,
psyllium husks or chia seeds or whatever it might be. Oh, that's what it was. Fat. Don't be
yeah.
afraid of fat. Don't be afraid
Good
of healthy
fats.
fat.
Yeah.
100%.
Good
Fish,
fats. Yeah.
avocado, yeah, whatever it
Yeah.
might
Olive
be.
oil,
Nuts
all
and
of that
seeds.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't ideally don't let people demonize nutrients. We need
Yeah.
them in different amounts. And if you eat a colorful, varied, whole food diet, you won't need to worry whether you're eating too much fat or not enough protein and all of those sorts of things. So, yeah.
And this is something that I do with my clients when we're doing weight loss hypnotherapy sessions is slowly eating. Put your knife and fork down in between each
Yes,
mouthful because our brain and our guts, it's 20 minutes or so before it even registers, right? Is
exactly.
Yeah,
It
so people
is.
eat too fast. They eat too fast and then they're hungry in a second. Well, yeah, they're full and then they're hungry and then they're so eating slowly will what I love about the Japanese is that they say eat till you're only 80% full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Um, you're absolutely right. It takes 20 minutes for the hormones in your tummy to be released and actually make their way to your brain to tell you that's enough, you're full now.
Mm,
And that's it, that whole non-diet approach where you're listening to those cues and triggers, but also aware of the timeline. So exactly, eat your first serving, give yourself, make sure it's been about 20 minutes by the time you've kind of finished it, and then ask yourself, are you still
mm,
hungry? Because likely
mm.
you won't be. But if you eat and go, my God, I love that. I enjoyed that. I'm not full. I'm going to have another one. You're only not full because the signals haven't hit yet. So I think that's
Exactly.
really good, a really good recommendation.
Yeah. And I always say to them, is the hunger above your shoulders or below your shoulders?
Right.
Is
Yeah.
the hunger coming from your stomach or is it coming from your head?
Yeah.
So ask yourself where it's coming from. But and obviously muscle building training, some sort of weight bearing training is really important.
Absolutely. That's right. I mean, I'm not a personal trainer, but if you know someone who's very good with that sort of thing, or you can access a personal trainer or a gym, then ask them to help you focus on metabolic health. We essentially most chronic diseases have an inflammatory and a metabolic aspect, and so we really want to bring down the inflammation by getting rid of all the chemicals that are sitting in around us, and we're eating, our stress, we're sleeping better, just bringing down all that oxidative damage in our body. and then also being able to have the space to move and have our muscles working so we are metabolically well. So just asking someone to help you to improve your metabolic health in terms of physical activity is really helpful.
Mm, mm. So we've talked about what are they and how they work, and you gave a very fantastic, succinct, not too scientific explanation, which was, I hope everybody understands. Do you have to stay on them forever? We spoke about that. Um, and the side effects and what people wish they knew before they went on them, or if they're on them, what they now can sort of learn from our conversation today. Um, I think it is obviously these medications are around. People are on them exactly what you said because for health reasons, you wouldn't deprive somebody of insulin if they were a diabetic. You wouldn't deprive someone of antidepressants if they were really depressed. Um, so it's just another medication that some people need.
I so agree with you. It's well and fine for people to say, "Oh, she's on, Wegovy or on
Yeah.
Mounjaro, whatever it might be." But
Mm,
the reality is, many people are walking around with multiple chronic disorders and diseases, and they have tried very hard to wind that back. But you've got multiple layers of really chronic and complex issues.
mm,
And so you want some sort of switch that just starts it to wind backwards and down and simplify the picture. And these
mm,
medications can do that. And so the other thing I think that's really important for people to keep in mind is that this is not all your fault. Our
mm,
food is laden with chemicals. We
mm.
pour endocrine disruptors over us. We shampoo in them. We dishwash in them.
Perfume.
We breathe, absolutely. We breathe them in. And we don't know. Nobody tells you. If you're out there, get the Yucca app, YUKA, and start checking all your products and getting rid of your plastics. Don't heat food in
Mm,
plastics. Get rid of your non-stick fry pans, particularly if they're scratched. All of these sorts of things that we're starting to learn about.
environmental stuff. Yeah.
100%. These
Mm,
are super inflammatory. Some
mm,
of what has happened to a large percentage of our population has been because of other people making money off the back of it. Not as, and we didn't know about it. We didn't know that glyphosate kills all sorts of things and potentially gives people cancer.
mm.
Like there's just so many things that have been done to our food and our environment, and we've not been party to it. So don't
Mm,
blame
mm, mm.
yourself for all of the things that we now have to endure.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, this episode is all about, the medications, what they do, how long you have to stay on them for, if it's forever or not, and um, how we can stay healthy, the things like protein, muscle building, all of that stuff, hydration, electrolytes, I guess, if you're feeling unwell and nauseated. Um, and there's so much to talk about and unpack that I think we've got to do another episode around this because I think the emotional side is really important. And that identity, we touched on that before, but I think it's not about being skinny. It's not about that. It's about being healthy
Exactly.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nourishing our bodies with good, healthy food. And, whether or not you have to stay on this forever or not, how do we come off them?
Mm.
And how do we stay with that beautiful mindset that you know I'm entitled to be healthy, um, nourish my body, all of those things that we spoke about.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I think it's not cheating,
No.
it's getting ourselves to a point that yeah, we're healthy enough so we do cut the any major diseases out, obviously heart, cardiovascular, diabetes, blood pressure, all of the things that obviously too much weight can cause. We want to be as healthy as we can
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
future self.
Exactly. We
And
want to
who
be
do we
here
want?
as we want to be here as long as we can be,
Yeah.
you know, and feel vital and well and with the people we love.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like being around for the people that we love, exactly that. And that's visualizing yourself, your future healthy, vibrant self.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, love
Yeah.
it.
So we are going to do another episode and we're going to talk more about the identity. And I've got a case study that I did,
Awesome.
um, and yeah, about hypnotherapy and how I can help. But yeah, you obviously do, at the college, talk about all of that in that non-diet approach. We know diets don't work. We know they
100%.
psychologically fail every time. It's not
Pretty
about
much.
dieting. You don't have to starve yourself
No.
to be healthy and actually be a very healthy weight. You can eat beautiful food and plenty
Mhm.
of it
Mm.
and be
Mhm.
healthy. So
Mm.
it's not about starving yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much for all of your wisdom
You're welcome.
today. It's been fantastic. And
Thank you.
yeah, we will talk about our next episode.